So hi guys, welcome to another video, and this is the comparison of two giants, the Huawei Pura 70 Ultra, the camera queen, and the previously sub-branded Honor, with the Honor Magic 7 Pro. I hope you like the video. Please like, comment and subscribe, and let me know what you think below. So these are the devices. You can see we've got two very different designs here. However, they do offer a relatively similar package. It's 3 lenses. The actual main camera lens on the Huawei Pura 70 Ultra is bigger with its 1-inch sensor, and we've got variable aperture on both. However, with the Huawei it's f1.6 to f4, and it's got 10 different stops, where with the Honor you've got 1.4 or 2. Just simple. You can adjust it both variably, but you don't get the stops in between. So hope you can all hear me. This is a video comparing the Honor Magic 7 Pro to the Huawei Pura 70 Ultra. So this is something new for me, so we're just going to compare it side by side. So always on the left is the Huawei, always on the right is the Honor. So as you can see here, the Honor, I believe, is doing a much better job with its telephoto camera. So this is using both telephoto lenses. I would say over sharpened on both of them. However, the dynamic range is way better on the Honor throughout its lenses. But as you can see here, if you look at the window, you can see the coloured lights in the window. Here you can't, you can just see, you know, some sort of yellowy tint. You can see the brickwork up here as well, a bit more detail on the Honor compared to the Huawei. Bit more noise coming in on a Huawei. Slightly heavier noise reduction on the Honor. If we then go to ultra wide, you can see here both actually struggling with detail. Quite a lot of smoothing going on both. Again, look at the dynamic range here. Look at the sign just in front of you on both. We can see here it's handled much better on the Huawei. Detail levels on the edges are actually really similar, pretty poor on both. You can see Huawei though is struggling a bit more here. Texture wise, very similar. Again, Huawei looks like it is struggling to stitch it together, and you can see some sort of purple tint coming through where it's struggling with the light. On Honor, much better colours. Look at the sharpness on the base here, much better. Lens flare as well on the Honor is way better than on the Huawei. Let's look at the building here for detail. Struggling to see that brickwork on the Honor, and again struggling on the Huawei here as well. So both very similar in that respect. Let's go to the main sensor. So a big colour difference here. The Honor way more accurate. It wasn't purple. The sky wasn't purple. The flooring wasn't red. It's way more accurate on the Honor. You can see that they obviously have a similar approach to their processing, but I think Honor has sort of advanced slightly away from the Huawei days here. If we look at the sign again, look here, you can see a bit more detail. You can't really read any of the writing on the Huawei's image, however on the Honor's image you can make it out. Sharpness, again similar on both slightly over sharpened. Look at the dark areas here, how's the shadows doing? You can see on the Honor, handled quite nicely. Again, dynamic range remains pretty good on both of these, but I believe the Honor does a much better job. Now again, telephoto lenses, dark conditions on both. This one here I actually think is probably a win for the Huawei. Slightly overblown highlights here. If you look at the Greg sign on the right hand side, on the right, the Honor has done it, but it's slightly blowing it out. Not quite as crisp, where if we compare that to the Huawei, slightly more detail there. Brickwork again remains really similar on both. Can't really call this one, it's really sort of personal preference related. Colours again on the Honor, slightly more accurate. And if we go back to the macro now, this is where Huawei gets some points back here. It's not all rosy for Huawei here, but it does do a better job in general than the Honor, and it's much easier to take macro photography than on the Honor. However, you can see here that if we go on here, I think because it's sort of got that sort of inbuilt macro mode on the Huawei with its telephoto lens, the focus point is a lot smaller. So if we look in the middle, you can see not super detailed in this shot. The edges as well, you can see a bit of noise going on here, not quite as crisp around the edges, especially at the ends. You can see a lot of blur starting to creep in. Where if we go to the Honor, not sure what's going on with the colours here, and it definitely over sharpened. However, I think the edge detection is actually better, but you do have to stand further away with the Honor to get these shots. Annoyingly, it's a lot harder to get a decent macro shot from the Honor. However, it can produce some nice results, but kind of disappointed with both of these shots, to be honest with you. And now this is an interesting topic. This is the super zoom from Honor and the standard zoom from Huawei, and I'll be honest with you, I actually think that Huawei's doing a better job here. I don't like the super zoom feature on the Honor. It loses you know, a lot of those details that are actually important. If we look here at the chimney, this is 35 times zoom on both, so we are pushing the boundary here of what they can offer, but you can see there's cement around the stacks. If we go to the Huawei, you can see it's much more clearly identifiable here than on the Honor. Another big difference here is look at the top, look at the aerial, you can see the sort of antennas from the aerial. If we go to the Honor, it's actually completely kind of removed them and sort of over processed them. A lot more smoothing going on, and it sort of looks like it's just been painted, where with the Huawei, again, slightly more natural look, a lot softer but slightly more natural. Again, both doing sort of a similar job here. Macro again, and I actually think I picked the Honor in this shot. Slightly more noise on the Huawei on the left. If we look around here, you can see slightly more noise compared to the Honor, and the edge detection actually slightly better on the Honor on this one. Slightly more details as well. Look at the stems, look at this white flower, slightly more detailed, and also better colours. I like the extra contrast in this shot. Come back to the ultra wide again in daytime this time. So this one is, wow, it's close to call it. Colours here extremely similar. Maybe slightly blown sky on the Huawei on the left, and I'd say it's probably slightly more natural and realistic on the right hand side. Them colours seem slightly more accurate on the Honor. Detail wise, very similar. You can see towards the left hand side of the image and the corners, you get a much more smoothing, but this is on both. So detail wise, I'd say really sort of on par here. I can't really pick a winner, but if I was to pick, I think it would be the Honor, because in nighttime conditions there is less lens flare and there is also slightly more detailed images. Main sensors now with both. I actually think there's probably slightly more detail on Huawei's shot. You know, with the brickwork here, you can see it's quite nicely processed. It doesn't quite look as over sharpened. Where if we go to the Honor, slightly more yellow tint on the Honor this time, but it just looks slightly over sharpened. Slightly overdone here. It does give you that sort of digital compression look. And if we look at the railings on the top of the building here as well, you can see it's kind of stitched back on. Where again, on the Huawei, much more natural, although it's missed some. Now if we go to the zoom shots, you can see on these zoom shots that really sort of similar process in here. It's actually crazy to see. I actually think the Huawei does a better job at this 3.5 times zoom level, both using their telephoto. However, look at the grass, it's much more detailed and actually nicer rendition here than on the Honor, slightly smoothed over. But I'm really sort of nitpicking here. Detail wise, again, really similar. If you zoom in here on the right, again, slightly, look at the brickwork here. A little bit of detail still there on the Honor. And again, slightly smoothed over on the Huawei, but really sort of similar here. And actually, in terms of telephoto lenses, they're actually really close. I think Honor needs to do a lot of optimization for their camera system in general, not just the telephoto lens, because Huawei is sort of getting every last drop of information and detail it can out of a sensor it has, where Honor should be really pulling ahead here, but it's not. You'll see it in this shot here as well. For some reason here it's the wrong way around, the Honor's on the left, but you get the idea. Huawei sort of probably slightly more correct with the lighting, but not as much detail as on the Honor, but both sort of a poor performance, and I actually expected better from the Honor. But a nicer rendition of the text on the Honor, definitely. Slightly less noise and maybe slightly more detail. Another one here, you can see that lens flare issue with the Huawei that the Honor has. And I'm really impressed with that. I know with the latest Vivo flagship, it actually does struggle with lens flare. However, the Honor actually seems to deal with dynamic range and lens flare really well. Look at this, the colours are way more accurate. Much more detail in the brickwork than on a Huawei. So win here for the Honor.